Welcome to the channel. My name's Stu and this is a story about returning to play electric guitar after putting it down nearly 40 years ago and the lessons learned to get up to speed with the many changes in the music industry when looking to purchase guitars, amps and pedals. So do check out the previous videos, which is the introduction to my journey. So back in episode 1 of my journey, I spoke about taking delivery of an electric guitar some 40 years since I performed and recorded in a rock band. And while a bit like riding a bike, some things you don't forget, while other things, well, they need a little more work to get you back on track. But what I wasn't prepared for was my inability to seamlessly merge into playing over a backing track. And I don't mean just playing alongside, I mean blending into the track. Now, some folks call that playing in the pocket. Now, you know, when you start out playing on your own, yes, you learn chords and scales, and to the casual listener, sounds like you're doing well, but playing with a band, well, that soon shows up the flaws in your timing and in general, just not playing in that pocket where, you know, instruments need to blend in a flow of dynamic energy. Back in the 70s, there were many bands, often called garage bands or garage bands if you're in the States, because that's where you practiced until the neighbours called the police and forced you to find somewhere else to practice. Now, some of those are funny memories, and looking back, you know, in all honesty, I used to get quite depressed by it all. Trying to get a place to practice at that time in Edinburgh, Scotland, you know, being a loud rock band, it was getting a place to practice was thin on the ground. And for kids just out of school, the costs involved to rent a room in a community centre and then trying to get transportation to get your gear there and back home for, you know, just a couple of hours practice, it wasn't cheap. So relying on friends with a car, which was rare, or parents who they dreaded getting their car damaged carrying bulky equipment. It just wasn't easy, and I suppose I've got many funny tales about that. But my point being, learning to play along with others is a surefire way of getting, you know, quickly improving timing and technique. Anyway, back to my return to playing guitar. As mentioned in a previous video, once I got the Moore GE250 multi-effects unit with its looper feature, where I could record a backing rhythm track and then play over with a lead track, I noticed that my rhythm technique was a little sloppy and my lead fills were just missing the mark. I found I wasn't muting strings correctly, the way I should be. Pull-offs and my hammers were not as clear and as tight as they should be. And when I played along with some of the blues tracks I was listening to on the internet, I found that I was just not quite blending in, and thereby when I played, it sounded detached. Now this really took me aback because after all, I'd been playing guitar for years and I knew I had to fix it. And if you've ever been through that, or perhaps you're experiencing that right now, then do comment below. Now, I've never used a metronome in my life, but I decided to buy one. I did have a digital option on the GE250 multi-effects unit, but I decided to purchase the Wittner Metronome because, quite frankly, coming back to guitar, it's about something that I want to enjoy. However, if you want to be proficient at something, you need to have a measure of discipline and focus. And it's to that end, that's why I got a physical metronome, to make it just a bit more fun, as well as being a visual aid, because it's interesting to watch the pendulum as you seek to play in time. For those of you who'd like to know how things were recorded, in regard to the ambient recording in my lounge, I used a Sennheiser 416 broadcast shotgun mic about 2 feet from the amplifier straight to the camera, which records at 24-bit 48 kilohertz. I knew I had to brush up on my skills because, and this might come as a surprise to younger folks, despite playing, performing lead rhythm guitar in a rock band for nearly 10 years, I really had virtually no idea what scales I was actually playing. You know, at 14, 15, I did take some guitar lessons and I learned the modicum of musical naming structures. But like so many other young musicians I knew in those early days, my main source of playing came from listening to records and feeling the music. You messed around on the guitar until you found things that worked. And of course, as I experimented, I was playing and mixing various scale platforms and chord phrasing without even knowing it. Now, I do believe that was quite a common thing that would happen. And I've heard of a number of well-known guitar players who admit to not having a clue regarding musical terminology outside of the usual basic chord names. So, armed with printouts of various scales, I would play up and down the neck. It was a slow process of using the metronome at ever-increasing speeds to hone my fingering and my timing. It's not just a case of trying to get faster. It's about clarity of each note. It's about picking each note with consistency, getting rid of sloppiness, getting rid of just where you're detached. So along with improving the picking hand, every day I got up earlier than usual, spent at least an hour with the metronome, improving my chord rhythm playing and my scales, because I knew this would benefit me. This would be at the heart of what I would be recording. So the next stage was to start practicing to backing tracks. And once again, the internet provided a range of music styles, and I found blues shuffle tracks really fun to play along with. They forced you to find that jivey groove, particularly with a shuffle. While country music, well, that made you think about longer lead runs without running out of steam. Slow blues, on the other hand, made you understand the need to have excellent timing and feel without crowding out the actual, you know, the actual sound you're wanting to do and fitting in with whatever the tune is. So thinking of at least one blues legend, B.B. King, he was famous for using very few notes really, but he really accented those notes by the use of vibrato. All great stuff to get you into the swing of playing in that pocket. So to further help me get the guitar to be, as it were, an extension of my hands, I regularly play the guitar not plugged in, particularly when I'm catching up on the day's news or when watching a film or a documentary. I quietly do finger exercises up and down the fretboard, and at work, while I'm at my computer, if I'm busy rendering files, then at any opportunity, I'll pick up the guitar and just practice. Who says men can't multitask? But that's another point. I often play an electric guitar acoustically, not plugged in, okay? So, however, you can be under the impression that you're sounding pretty good, yet the moment you plug into an amplifier, suddenly things are not as clean as you thought. So practicing through an amplifier is crucial to hearing just how well you're actually playing those notes and controlling any spill or sloppiness. Now Christmas arrived and my wife would often see me playing this way and surprise me with a little gift. There are a number of these types of units, but this one is made by Vox, and it's a tiny battery-operated amplifier that you plug into your guitar, and then using headphones you can dial in the sound you're after. I've actually found some other uses for this. When I went to purchase a guitar from a seller, we met at a motorway service station and I took this little unit to test out the guitar. So handy bit of kit. So back to guitar practicing and technique. A subject I've noticed more recently on social media videos are guitarists talking about playing with feeling and trying not to get caught up with wanting to play faster than the next person in the room. And of course, as a youngster, I remember how impressed we would be if someone could play blistering fast licks. But these days, I often find super fast playing somewhat irritating. So many guitar channels start with someone shredding up and down the neck. And to me, unless there's context for that, it can sound like a meaningless noise. Now, don't get me wrong, super fast playing sounds dramatic when used to great effect within an appropriate space given for it. But overuse or inappropriate use, just like any other form of drama, is just pointless, unless, of course, you just love playing fingering exercises. And so I understand why so many guitar teachers are bringing this subject up. Getting the instrument to draw you into the song is so important. Its story, talking to you, just as a vocalist weaves their tale, getting the guitar to cry or lift your spirits as it peaks. There are so many classic songs with short guitar solos that do exactly that, and because of that, they are remembered. So it's been interesting watching my own progress as someone who began playing guitar with feeling. It was all about emotion. It was all about the guitar was there to unburden what was going on inside here. And yet coming back to guitar and realizing there is a need for more disciplined practice and finding myself guilty of running up and down the neck. No, not shredding style, but playing far more notes than is actually required for a given track. I was finding I was actually guilty of that. And sure, it's all fun. But when it comes down to, getting down to recording and laying down the piece to be played, it's time to take a step back and listen to what the music is trying to say. What's the story? So as I continue this journey towards completing compositions that I'm working on at this moment in time, all this practice and work on technique can make you look more intently at the guitars you're using, the tone of the amplifiers, the quality of the effects pedals. And as you progress, you can often become picky about so many things, and yet it's so important to remember to stay focused, because at the end of the day, what's the end result? You know, in 2019, with my foot now in the musical door, now sure, I don't know where my journey is going to take me, I purchased the off-the-shelf Fender Stratocaster that reintroduced me to my love for playing. But as time passed and my ear developed, my affection for the guitar increased. I began to feel a need to draw closer to the instrument that would make me feel more as though it were a part of me, something that would help draw me back to feeling emotion, which would in turn affect the compositions I would be writing. In the next video, for many, it's going to be a very provocative and controversial topic, and I don't mean it to be. Why would anyone buy a guitar that looks as though it's been mistreated by a careless owner? I did something I never thought for one moment that I'd ever do, and yet I'm really glad I did. If you like the content, then subscribing and hitting the usual buttons are much appreciated. And please do add your own comments below or any questions you think that I might be able to help with. Until next time, the journey continues. Take care.